Welcome friends to another r/ProRevenge video. Today we've got a crazy story detailing why you should always pay your accountant. But first, a story from Sure Maintenance 7002. Try to rip me off? Let's get your mother-in-law involved. Booked a local guy to install new doors in my house during lockdown. I was staying at my sister's. Thought I was doing him a favor as no one wanted people in their house, so he was lacking work. Well, he puts the doors in but doesn't trim them to fit. So I couldn't close any doors, including the hallway and bathroom door, without them scraping and damaging the floor. He said he would do that the next week. 4 times he arranged to come back, then didn't show. Eventually, I just asked for half my money back, as he did technically supply the doors. He promised, then delayed. Threatening court action got me nowhere. Writing a negative review got me nowhere. Months go by. So my friend and I did some Sherlock Holmes sleuthing, and my friend worked out we knew his mother-in-law. She was a teacher at our old high school. One text was all it took. Sorry we couldn't resolve this, but small world, I know your mother-in-law. She was my favorite teacher in school. I really should catch up with her. Money was hand-delivered through my mailbox within 20 minutes. And yeah, I mentioned it to his mother-in-law anyway. He's divorced now, probably not my doing, but still funny. Do you almost feel bad for the guy that they were that scared of being ripped into by their own mother-in-law that they would be willing to go and fork up that cash? Or do you think, considering the quality of work he did, it wasn't even enough revenge? Let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. Our next story is from Lesbian Linguist. Won't pay me back? I'll just embarrass you. Another story on here reminded me of something I did back in 2016. So I joined the Navy in 2016. During boot camp, we have these photo packages offered to us that are super expensive. You can get your boot camp pictures, a light-up crystal engraving, etc. They had initially made us send all of our belongings back home in a box, but they told us to keep a couple of things, such as our credit and debit cards. One of the girls I'd befriended forgot to keep her card with her, so she didn't have a way to pay for her picture package, which came out to be about $200. I told her I'd spot her, and I wrote down her info to contact her after boot camp. Obviously, a lot of us added each other on all forms of social media, so I had her on Facebook. I sent her a couple of messages to remind her that she owed me that money, and she said that she was a bit broke, so she'd get back to me. So I waited. Sent another message, no reply. Another, no reply. She didn't even have the brain cells to delete me off Facebook before posting pics with her friends of her expensive shopping trips. So here's the revenge. I went through her info on Facebook, found her mom's number on white pages, and gave her a call. Hi, Mrs. Mother of Cheapskate, this is OP. I went to boot camp with your daughter. I actually lent her money for the picture package. She said she was too broke, yet going on shopping trips constantly, and she's now ignoring my messages on Facebook. So I thought I might give you a call and see if you can get her to respond. She hasn't paid you back? Interesting. Very interesting. What's your address? About a week later, I received a very nice handwritten note from Cheapskate with more than she owed me. I guess telling mommy really got to her. I think OP got the good ending in this scenario. I feel like a lot of people, if they're the kind of people that can afford going on rich shopping sprees and stuff like that, and also somebody like this who's going to try to stiff you and get away with it, you tend to believe that that kind of thing is a passed down behavior. And it wouldn't surprise me that in a million other similar scenarios, a mom would be like stuck up, snooty, deflecting, saying they're not responsible for anything, telling you to go bite it, stuff like that. So the fact that this worked out so well for OP is actually pretty awesome. Our next story is from Sunset Bro 78. Don't park in my space. This happened a few years ago when I was living in Burbank, California. For a variety of reasons, I couldn't park in my space, and instead parked on the street, which was in a good area. Parking was allowed at all times for residents of Burbank only. The spot right in front of my house was always available, but it was under a tree full of birds, and your car would be covered in turds even after a few hours. Naturally, I didn't want to park there and would instead leave my car in front of the house 2 doors down, the nearest place with no tree. One day, the snooty owner meets me as I'm getting into my car. He wants me to keep clear of their space. I explained that public space is not theirs. He then threatened to do something to my car. The police went over there after I called them and found they were using the house for their business of renting camera equipment. That was against the law, and they had to cease operations immediately and get the freak out of Burbank within a month. Further, everyone there was parking on the street, and as non-residents of the city, they were in violation and all received tickets as well. Every action carries a consequence that you probably did not anticipate, Mr. Neighbor. It was a most satisfying week. Honestly, I don't blame OP if they're parking in a spot that makes sense for them, and they have every right to do so. People might say that it's bad etiquette to park in front of somebody else's house and take that space, but it is public property and nobody can dictate where you can and can't park on that street. So for them to come up to you, confront you, and then basically make an ambiguous threat as to what they're going to do to your car, calling the authorities and at least trying to build up that report is a pretty good idea. Because if something does happen, that's going to be on record that you called them in and reported that. And this business bust was just the icing on the top. Our next story is from Mergadoro. Here's a leaking pen for you. Eons ago in the 3rd grade, one classmate brought a box of 12 blue ballpoint pens. They were all the rave as they wrote very smoothly. 11 friends of generous classmate got 1 pen each. I wasn't one of them, but I had the same pen, but never ever dropped them, because the tip would start leaking. The trick is to wipe off the excess ink with a piece of paper and then use it. If writing for long minutes, periodically wipe off the tip of the paper. To store the pen, wrap it in paper before putting on the cap, and then put it in our pencil cases. One of the 11 recipients of the magic pen is Nasty Andrew. We fought each other all the time for every reason under the sun. Hey, we were 8. So in our schoolrooms in my country, the bench and desk are attached to each other. Each bench seats 2 people. The bench has a backrest. The backrest extends into the table for the people behind you, and so on. One day, Andrew was handing a book to my friend Joan behind him to be passed on to the end of the row. But Joan was busy writing something and didn't see the thing. Andrew bopped Joan on the head with the heavy book, which caused her pen to slide on the whole paper, rendering her assignment unsubmittable. I got mad too because we were 8. Her enemy is my enemy. The revenge, I stole the paper and cap for the amazing pen, and put the pen tipped down inside his bag. The pen leaked all over inside the bag and messed up his notebooks. Petty on hindsight, but for 8-year-old me, it was ProRevenge. Honestly, for me, looking back to a time like 3rd grade, this story serves as like a perfect example of the things the class would get obsessed about or use as like a status figure, when in reality, it's just having a pen. Like, for no describable reason, everybody in the classroom just starts like losing their mind at how amazing these pens are and how cool you are if you have one. And it's like down the road you realize, it was just a pen. Why was everybody so obsessed over it? Why was that your 3rd grade reputation piece? Our next story is from Ricky Corey. Beat my full-grown butt dad's workout. Short and sweet. I'm 5'2", 24, female, and my dad's 5'8". My brother was teaching him certain muscle-building workouts so dad can lift his muscles properly. My brother was teaching him how to do Bulgarian squats and wanted to use me as an example to show dad how it's done. Dad saw me lift 25-pound dumbbells each and started laughing. Says that I can't properly do it, doing 50 pounds in total, and will probably angle it wrong. Well, suck it, Dad, I did it properly, as I should, and my brother was very impressed with me. Dad made a surprised Pikachu face and was like, whatever, I do more weights than you, 35 pounds each, to which I pointed out, sure, but you're not doing a 90-degree proper way like mine, to which he didn't respond back. Honestly, it's greatly disappointing to me that this dad felt it necessary to make this into some like one-up competition. It sounds to me like there was some kind of insecurity about, I don't know, not being able to outlift your own daughter. It's one thing to make a competition out of it, it's another to be insecure and make it like a one-up contest. By the way, if you're enjoying these videos, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Every single video has awesome stories, like our next story from Reddit admin Dumb87. You should always pay your accountant, especially if you've got skeletons in your closet. My buddy's an accountant, he has his own firm. His biggest clients are small to medium-sized businesses. Well, he had a client who owned 4 different clubs and bars in 2 different cities. Client was always shady, always slow on payment, etc. I was also a customer of one of the bars. They had a poker game that I would play in on Thursdays. Well, one day I'm at my buddy's house having a few beers, and he's complaining about non-payment from a client. I ask who, but he doesn't want to say. But it's really bugging him because it's a significant chunk of change. He then says the name, we'll call him Scott. I'm like, wow, Scott isn't paying you? He then says Scott is saying business is way down. And I think that's odd. I've been going to one Scott place, and every Thursday it's packed. My buddy looks at me and goes, really? I go, yeah, he does this new cash discount thing. 15% off your tab if you pay cash. My buddy goes, really? I tell him about my experience at Scott's bar, and eventually the topic changes. A few weeks later, my buddy calls me up and says, you going to Scott's bar to play poker? I said, yeah. He says, can I join? I go, sure. He joins, we get a few drinks in us, lose our money at poker. My house is closer and he decides to crash there. On the way over, he breaks down his theory. He thinks Scott is vastly underreporting his revenue. The reason why he suspects Scott is offering cash discounts is because cash is easier to hide. He says he's going to do a deep dive on Scott's finances. My friend tells me his plan is to go to all 4 of Scott's establishments, get the prices he charges at each place, piece together how much alcohol he's buying versus how much Scott is saying his revenue equates to, looks up how much Scott's paying in payroll, rent, bills, etc. Keep in mind, he has access to all this info, and he determines that Scott is basically using his credit card receipts plus a little bit of cash to cover his cost of business to include rent, payroll, insurance, liquor, food, etc. However, based upon the amount of products he's selling, he's suspecting Scott's underreporting his total income by about 35 to 40%. He goes back into Scott's books even more, and he figures in the last year, Scott's been underreporting his sales by 35 to 40%. But he's also been underreporting his sales by at least 20 to 25% for years on end. Simply put, there is no way Scott is going through as much product and as much alcohol as he's purchasing and having the revenue numbers that he's claiming. He's underreporting his sales to his accountant, which means he's also underreporting his earnings to the IRS. By this point, Scott owes my friend thousands of dollars that he hasn't paid. He said his total amount owed could buy a brand new motorcycle. He never gave me an exact number. My friend decides screw getting repayment from Scott. Let's get repayment from the IRS through the whistleblower program. He's estimating Scott's underreported his revenue by millions of dollars over the course of years. The whistleblower fees he'd earned from the IRS far outweigh the amount Scott owes him. The IRS will pay between 15 to 30% of what they collect. So with the assistance of a lawyer, my friend gathers all the evidence he has Scott's underreporting of to the IRS and files a whistleblower report with them. During this time, my friend fires Scott as a client for non-payment. Now, this part gets boring because there's a lot of legal wrangling and back and forth. This went back and forth. However, eventually the IRS comes down on Scott, and they come down hard. It's estimated that Scott underreported his income to the IRS by about $4.5 million. Now, my friend never told me how much the IRS was able to recoup, but Scott's businesses are no longer his businesses, and $4.5 million would put the whistleblower reward at around $675,000 to $1.3 million. Keep in mind, it's based on what the IRS collects, not the amount that's reported. I've asked my friend how much he got in the end, and he simply says, I no longer have a mortgage, and it would have been much cheaper for Scott to just pay me. Yeah, I mean, this story is a good example as any that if you're going to try to cheat the system like that, just know it takes one slip up to get caught, one person that witnesses everything that's going on and just doesn't have an interest in protecting you in any way. And not only do you stand to lose all of it, you probably stand to lose a lot more too. Because of that $4.5 million that Scott did not report, I would be willing to bet that they didn't have nearly that much saved up or in assets. This next story is from Memphis Grit. Maintenance guy at Senior Living Center gets revenge on satellite TV companies. Over 200 plus residents emerge victorious. I'm the maintenance director at an independent senior living center. It's pretty much an apartment complex in which you have to be a senior citizen to reside. We provide 3 meals a day, housekeeping, activities, a bus for transportation, and several other amenities to increase the quality of life because, more times than not, they'll spend the final years of their lives here. Our facility is family-owned and orientated. Family members of current employees are encouraged to apply for positions. We have one rule in our employee handbook: ensure resident safety, happiness, and prolongment of life. I take my job very seriously and take pride in it. I try to go above and beyond to make them all happy. Each resident during the daytime either listens to the radio, plays crossword puzzles, or most of the time watch their favorite TV shows. We don't provide television service. Each resident has to provide it themselves if they choose. Over the last year, there's been a trend of televisions not working in countless units, and when this happens, they're very upset. When I get a work order for a TV, I go and check it out. Most of the time, there's nothing I can do. If the cable isn't cut, everything's plugged in, and there's no obstruction to the satellite signal, it's going to be a software issue. When this happens, I install an air antenna until the regular service is fixed. I call the company and a tech comes out, fixes it, and usually within a couple of hours, it stops working again. This is a never-ending cycle of upset residents. Over the course of an entire year, I spoke with several supervisors and tried to schedule for someone to come out and go through the entire property with me to address each issue. They weren't having that. They wanted me to go to each individual unit and have that particular resident call them. This is almost impossible. A lot of them have trouble hearing and discussing complex matters over the telephone, let alone know the 4-digit code and the answer to the secret question. One resident was out of service for over 60 days, and I demanded that they refund or discount this particular resident properly. They ended up giving her $21 off, which isn't even half of a single month's payment. When I spoke with this particular representative, I told them that wasn't enough, and I would be throwing all of their dishes in the dumpster. This is just the tip of the iceberg. These companies have caused significant property damage to the facility. They've ran the coax in the gutters and down the downspouts, ran cables draped over the sidewalk, which is a tripping hazard, installed dishes in the center of courtyards and wherever it's convenient for them. All over the property, cables are strung out on top of the grass for hundreds of feet. They don't bother to bury any cables. I've discussed this numerous times with the owners of the facility the last year. The last time I spoke with him about it, he gave me the okay to handle the situation and do whatever needed to be done to fix the issue. My options were limited, and the only feasible option I could concoct was using a landline company that didn't need a satellite dish. Well, I've officially finished running new coax to every single unit, and a landline company came in and installed boxes and services in each resident's apartment. Residents who have previously had to pay a monthly fee for their television service now get their service free of charge. Those that never had service now do. We've saved over 50 residents money every month, and all in total, over 200 plus now have the television service that is included in their rent without any increase whatsoever. This was revenge for the representative talking to Miss T in such a negative and rude tone. I couldn't be happier for my residents. Honestly, bless OP for looking out for these people who, sadly in a lot of cases, do get mistreated. You always hear horror stories about how elder homes or senior care living situations, all these people get basically abused, minimal human contact, almost abandoned. So it's a godsend to hear a story where OP's a person out there just looking out for these people, improving the quality of their lives in their twilight years, and even saving them some money doing so. As far as I'm concerned, OP is a saint. And our final story of the day is from No Inspector 5529. Deny my employee claim and tell me if I don't like it, I can leave? I'll withdraw everything from your company and watch you disintegrate. I have a story that started before the COVID pandemic and just concluded a while back. I'm a typical simple guy who just likes relaxing and was born with the proverbial silver spoon in my mouth. I'm the black sheep of my family and a middle child to boot, double whammy, but I at least have a little brains and some luck, which I kind of use on a day-to-day basis. Due to my parents' connections, I managed to get into a lucrative school in my country, did my military service, and was promoted upward to captain, and later on was shipped off to college out of country. I've never been too close with many people apart from my circle of friends, and I prefer it that way. After my college, I was employed in government, you guessed it, family connections, and after a few years was able to use my name to get ahead and meet people, who helped me set up several businesses in my area, a coastal city, where this story happens. The money I used was generally allowances, small inheritance from my late grandma, some investments, a fund that was started when I was a baby, and money gifted to me by family, basically in an attempt to not leave me broke enough to embarrass them, even though I am a simple low-maintenance fellow. My businesses are booming, since the coastal area we live in attracts a lot of tourists, local and international, and of course some locals who wish to mingle with the tourists to get green cards, pen pals, spouses and such. Typical coastal city, I guess. The incident: as a proprietor of my business, I have most, if not all of my staff on salary, since it's the best way for them to gain benefits, and is easier for me as a business owner tax-wise. Tipping's more of a gift, typically since we don't have a tipping culture, and I have my staff on comprehensive medical insurance, which has additional dental and optical on top of the national governmental healthcare medical scheme. Our government hospitals provide all services free, but wait times for elective surgeries are exhausting. We also have a mandatory legal requirement to provide employees with retirement benefit savings, a minimum of 21 working days leave, I give 30, and my business offers paid overtime and unhindered medical leave for surgery and serious conditions, which can be extended, as well as allowances to seek treatment such as chemo or dialysis. One of my female employees, an older lady who is brilliant and had moved up the ranks to manager and was adored by all, was booked for a hysterectomy since, as she told me, she was at risk of cervical cancer as her mother had passed from it a few years back. And since she already had 4 kids, it was the most logical step. She did her due diligence and found a private hospital, which was in our system, where she could have the procedure done. On the planned date, she applied for leave days, which we obviously rejected, since this fell under the scope of medical leave. She went on to have the procedure successfully and had a quick recovery time. The bill was to be catered for by the company insurance, and we'd made sure to get all the necessary pre-authorizations. A few months later, she came into work looking distraught, and in all honesty, we thought that she'd been told that she'd gotten cancer since she asked for a day off to go for review and tests. But what happened was much worse. She'd been given a bill by the hospital since the insurance had refused to pay for it, citing that it was not in the scope of cover. We were livid since we had to make sure everything was in freaking order. I sent my accounts manager to go have a talk with the insurance people as we tried to calm her down. The manager came back super angry and told me that basically after showing them the evidence, the insurance people just told them to buzz off. I decided to personally go visit that office and get a clear understanding of what was happening. They kept me waiting for an hour, and even after that had the audacity to inform me the director from the head office who was in the area had declined to meet me because he was quote-unquote busy. I was pissed to the high heavens, so I decided to go to their head office in the capital city, a 2-hour flight. The head office was no help and informed me that they'd revised their policy and that it was not covered. I asked when the policy was revised. They informed me a month prior. I informed them the surgery was done 5 months prior and we had all the documentations. They claimed that it was 12 months retrospective. I inquired why I was not informed of it, since this was big news and I've held policies with them, and they told me that they'd informed their large clients and would inform the other clients when their insurances were due for renewal. I demanded to speak to their boss, company vice president, since the CEO was not around, and they boldly told me that he had no time for me and frankly that, in verbatim, we are a large company and have no time to argue semantics with low-end clients. If you don't like it, you can frankly leave and find a new insurance company. The revenge, if I'd been initially pissed, I was full-blown mad. I was livid and filled with rage. In all my years, I may have experienced some disrespect, and I accepted it to not make problems, but this time it went too far. I decided in the heat of the moment to switch everything and be done with them. I flew back home and just plain went to the hospital to settle the bill in full and took the receipt to my employee, who initially insisted that she would do anything to pay me back, but I refused since it was no way her fault, and I'll be darned if she pays for something that was way out of her control. I had a few days to cool down and talked with my directors. The words still etched on my mind. I asked how long it would take us to switch to another insurance. They went ahead and checked out a few large rivals of the insurance we had and discovered that if we switched, it would take 6 months for the new insurance to provide full coverage. The firm we picked, who I'll call New Insurance, offered us a way better deal to the one we had. And not only comprehensive cover, dental and optical, they also included mental health cover, physiotherapy and occupational therapy cover, rehabilitative services, mobility device acquisition, prosthetics and wheelchairs for some of the disabled employees, smart cards for direct payment on outpatient visits, kind of like a debit card, a dedicated team of relationship managers, death and funeral benefits, and an expanded coverage area, plus up to 6 dependents plus spouse cover. It would cost me a little more, but I didn't really care. The people who dealt with us from our previous insurance, who I'll call Old Insurance, seemed unfazed that I was pulling my company from them since they thought it was just a small business. They looked puzzled when I came in with several people and a few boxes of documents. What they failed to realize was that apart from that one business, which is a restaurant, I have 3 popular bars, a cab company, a hotel resort, cleaning service chain, a building and residential guard service, and several rental buildings in the town and around the country. Their shock was compounded when they were informed by the lawyer just who I am. And the shock, awe, confusion, and panic when they heard my family name was an extremely satisfying sight. Cue the pleading and attempted negotiations and apologies. It was so big that the news reached their head office, who sent not only their director, the one who was apparently too big to see me, but also their chief legal officer, chief financial officer, and president of the company. I also somehow earned a personalized call from their CEO who was abroad. No amount of sweet talking was changing my mind, and by the end of the 6 weeks, we'd completely removed ourselves from the old insurance. It was now a waiting game to the beginning of the new insurance cover, and we really hoped that no one would become unwell by that time, but we were ready just in case. In that time waiting, and after the new insurance commenced, I talked to my friends and my family on one of my holiday visits. My older brother's kids adore me, and my family kind of realized they were jerks to me and are trying to re-enter my life, and thought that was that. Aftermath, my friends and family took my words and also pulled their businesses from the insurance to other insurances. The company took such a huge hit, and when COVID came around and was a big deal, they were barely floating. They went into receivership soon after and were acquired by the insurance I'd moved to, who happened to be their greatest rivals. The directors and CEO were given their golden parachutes and resigned, and most of their employees were luckily retained, apart from the senior executives, including the ones who told my manager to buzz off. In a cruel twist of irony, the building they were operating on in our town was sold. And if you guessed I purchased it, you would be absolutely correct. I decided to remodel the inside and turn it into a business rental space. All in all, it was a bit of sweet payback, and wherever they are, I hope those disrespectful guys learned that everyone is human and they're not above anyone. And remember that karma is a cold and heartless witch. Incredible respect to OP in this story. Not only did they display that as somebody that owns a lot of businesses and is, by all appearances, very successful, but they displayed that they put their employees first, going out of their way to pay for that lady's hysterectomy when she wouldn't get coverage, standing up for the employees underneath them, making sure that employees have good insurance that actually covers the things that they're going to run into and face. I've had relatives who have insurance through their work, and somehow these insurance companies manage to deny claims, and one hospital trip still gets you stuck with thousands of dollars in bills. It's just mind-boggling and crazy and so frustrating. So it's nice to hear a story of somebody out there fighting for good insurance and protecting the people that work for them. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another revenge story that was even more insane than the ones in this video, click on that left video, or if you missed my latest video, click on the right. But with that said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.